A very warm welcome to Big Talk here on Global Televisions, where we highlight some perspective on the state of the nation. Generally, we'll be highlighting the demonstration of the run of young people who hit the streets across the country in the major cities, including the Federal Capital Territory here, Lagos, the demonstration at Benin, the demonstration at Kano, and many other cities who joined the nationwide protest by some Nigerians who feel that government are not doing enough in terms of addressing the economic situation. And there have been several calls by the young people. Of course, we have seen that the demonstrations is that the security operative seems to be having a very tough time controlling the crowd of young persons who are insisting on economic improving on the demands of the economy, and which they have to meet the expectations, making lives better for the people, making the security conducive for the nations, of course, to accommodate everyone. So we highlight to some of these earlier in the discussions, and of course we'll be looking at this perspective, the outcome of these one protests, as the government heard the cries of the people, as they really understand what these young people are pressing on, as the government also made move in resolving and addressing the demands they are outlining on the protest. It is presumed that the protest will be taken on for the next 10 days, but I mean, tomorrow's event will also play out, and how we could be able to understand what may be going on in the states across the country. But generally, we've also seen sad incidences in Kano where some hoodlums hijacked the peaceful protests, invading government offices and making aware with some properties of government. So also we see the fact that there is also distance from the government, and the government have to declare coffee at Kano in a way of calming down the tensions right there. It was a peaceful demonstration in all the states. We've seen Lagos, we have not had any sad record or incidences coming out from Lagos. We've seen in the capital city here, we only had shot of tear gas by the police and the security agencies rather. We also see the fact that there are concerns in Benin. We've also seen footages coming in from the Benin city where it was more like a rally, organized rally, where they were in a particular venue to present the demonstration. Because the idea was the fact that, yes, it's a peaceful, I mean, it's your right to protest, but what happened when some hoodlums hijacked the process? But they had promised, the planners and organizers had promised the federal government that they will be gathering in an environment where they can only stare at a point and then make the demonstrations known. But we'll bring some of these discussions as we make forward to see what has been the demonstration of day one, the result of day one, the demands of day one, the cry out of day one, and the expectation generally they're having. We'll be making these discussions and analysis, and of course I'll be having some guests who will be joining us to make these analysis depthly, and of course for us to understand what will be going on in the country across in the nationwide hunger protests. Do stay with us on the program Big Talk. I'll be right back. My name is Edikan Michael. The protesters are refusing to surrender. Where we've seen tear gas by police in a way to disperse them from where they were trying to go get the tensions of the presidency. We saw the fact that the National Assembly, the Federal Secretariat, and the major city centers were well captured by the protesters. But we earlier had a court order yesterday night where we saw the statement of the court restraining the fact that if protesters must carry on protesting in the Federal Capital Territory, Marshall Bill's National Stadium was the venue allocated for them. So when we earlier visited that location, we saw that the police were there, the security agencies generally were there. We saw also non-protesters, a way of trying to counter some of the to counter some of what the peaceful protesters were there for. So we interrogated with them. Of course, I earlier said this, but it was a treat of an event because if we must see where we are asking for a peaceful protest, should you rather, if you are disagreeing with those who are protesting, you have to confront them and also visit the same locations they are. That has been the demonstration concern we've seen in the Federal Capital Territory, which, if it's not well addressed and managed, these are the issues that may probably play out to be violence in nature, even as probably we are assuming that the protesters will be hitting the street again tomorrow. Anthony Mamodu was, of course, with me at the scene of these scenarios. He's also joining us on the program to give us a breakdown on some of these issues, and also we'll be having a guest who will be joining us subsequently on the course of the program to balance this report and make us understand better what government should rather do in a time like this. Anthony Mamodu, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
All right. It's been a very exciting
day. Thanks so much. I mean, it has been a very wonderful experience right there. I understand you may have some a level of depth issues about what played out because you were alive right there. You saw the pains and the cries of the protesters. To you, is it out of place? Because government probably may say, we've asked for dialogue, we've asked for them to come to the table so that they can talk about it. We also had a concern that, asking much is not necessarily going, from protest. Rather, it should also have the consideration of negotiating, a way of coming to a table to understand. So it's aware of the government. Sometimes we've seen that appointees of government and government officials are trying to distance themselves from these protests. Is the protest, has it really gotten the attention the original motive of this protest was about?
I think it got the attention even before it started today. We saw drastic and last-ditch effort by the federal government, state governors, even for opposition governors, talking about the PDP governors, still lending their voice to their citizenry, asking them not to be part of the protest. So it tells you that the presidency, the state governors had an inkling that this protest might become violent, or that the fact that they just truly are tired of the hunger they are facing, the harsh economic realities on ground, talking about the hike in electricity tariff, the removal of subsidy, how biting it was. And also, you cannot take away also the issue of insecurity ravaging the country, and also the issue of bad governance in terms of policies that seem to be inimical to the people, and also the issue of the electoral process that seem to always be flooded with corruption. And for instance, you look at the Ondo elections that will be coming up. We've seen that when it came to the primaries, they all had issues. So it meant INEC, the electoral process, is also always filled with a lot of irregularities. So it means the government seemed not to get it right in all the facets of our national life. Yes, you talked about the issue of negotiations with the youth or the would-be protesters. The issue is these negotiations came rather too late. It felt like the government were taking the people for granted, like they didn't believe the sufferings Nigerians were going through was real until fast forward 72 hours to the protest. That was when we began to see the government decide to take action, try to revisit some of their policies, started holding meetings with youth and civil society organizations, which a lot of people felt were very shady because 48 hours to 78 hours to the protest. That was when government started having closed-door meetings with civil society organizations, leaders of thought. And what did we see? After the meeting the next day, we just saw a reversal of stance by most leaders of thought, by civil society organizations backing out, state governors beginning to preach peace, beginning to ask citizens not to embark on the protest. And it was very disturbing, the fact that the federal government decided to use the tactics of intimidation as a way of trying to stop the protest from holding, because they kept saying that the protest was going to get violent, kept preaching the issue of violence and what may come out of it. And the question was, when this protest was set to hold, it wasn't termed violent protest. It was termed a peaceful protest to highlight the areas where Nigerians were facing difficulties and what they needed or wanted the federal government to do in return. So I would have expected the government to, rather than preach the issue of fear, trying to intimidate Nigerians, they would have rather tried to talk to Nigerians as regards efforts being made and try to make it a friendly approach rather than the standpoint of intimidation, which the security agencies across states, we saw in some states, security agencies marching through the streets with a show of force, a show of power, which I felt instigated the protesters. Like we saw today, there was this obvious attempt by the police officers to trigger violence by shooting canisters. Not just one, not just two, but at a point we had like 3, 4, 5, 6 at a go, and it was coming from different directions, meaning like they were trying to cage the protesters who were not armed. So it was very disturbing.
A very disturbing situation, because some of the protesters are really hitting on the government this time. They are asking that the need for the president to reverse subsidy removal.
Yeah.
That was another key point. I interacted all of them.
Yeah,
and they were asking removal of subsidy.
There's a particular woman who kept saying, if the government says there's a removal of subsidy and we're still paying lots of money for balancing the books, so like would say, then it's as good as bring back the subsidy. Let's know the subsidy. Let's know that, okay, we're paying monies for this, so that first of all, there's a removal of subsidy, but we're suffering the issue of the fact that there's still scarcity. That was just when we came out from the several canisters of tear gas that was shot at the media and the peaceful protesters. So, like I was saying, back to the issue of subsidy removal, the fact that the government is still paying subsidy, then it's as good as bring it back, so we know, yes, we are paying in full and we're having the product availability, because now we're still solving scarcity, we're still having high cost of purchase for fuel. So one looks at it and it's like there's no benefit at all. Yes, the government would tell you that the benefit is something you see over time, but how long and for and Nigerians going to wait? We're already seeing the sabotage of the Dangote refinery by stakeholders from the government side of the divide. So it tells you that there seems to be no sincerity of purpose by the government to end the sufferings of Nigerians. And I think that's one of the key things that have inspired the protesters to hit the streets.
A big concern about how government will be looking at this issue. I want to certify that there's a need for them to address the issues quickly and the demands of the people, because we're trying to see how the isolated cases of violence and looting in Kano will really look like, because we see the governor coming out to declare coffee in that particular state. And of course, we are just having that 7 mass transit buses were burnt in Portiskun, the headquarters of Yobe local government area, amid the NSAS protests. We've seen visuals and videos coming in from that. It's becoming, Anthony, it's becoming worrisome. It's becoming scary, because it was originally to be a peaceful protest. Now it also looks as if people are taking on the violence. How can we begin to finger those who are behind some of these actions?
I think it's very disturbing. That's not what we want. That wasn't the idea of the protest. The protest is just to highlight the harsh economic situation Nigerians are going through the insecurity, bedeviling the country, the poor electoral process, bedeviling the country. These are the key areas the protest is supposed to highlight. But for those who have decided to go into criminality, it's not. That's not what the protest is about. For instance, what played out in Kano, you want to ask the question, how come is the NCC's hub, which is to be launched, that got vandalized? The question, another big question is, was that the best place to situate such a very important infrastructure telecommunication issue? Are they do they understand the importance of that? Because we know there are certain regions where things that have to do with digital communication, people are open to it, embrace it. They have the intellectual capacity and all that to embrace and appreciate what that is. Because for the people of Kano, that is not what is best suited for them. There are other areas or other things which, if the government had brought towards them, they would appreciate more and guide it jealously. So it just tells you at times government's decisions on where they situate certain government institutions and all that cause for question. For the burning of buses and all that, that's also very appalling. And it begs the question, these buses, have they been used for the good of the people? Who are the drivers who are employed to drive these buses and all that? Has it been something that feels like is owned by the community? Because when the community knows certain infrastructure or project is for their own good, they own it, they would protect it. But when they perceive it's not for the good of the community or for them as a people, but rather for some elite benefiting from such a project, that's when you see such moves being carried out by angry or disgruntled people.
All right, well, of course, we've earlier highlighted the fact that some of these protests in some states are becoming violent in nature. And the security operatives are finding it very hard to apprehend some of these hoodlums. And we've also found it that it's very difficult. You've seen visuals also from Maraba here in the Federal Capital Territory, where the protesters overpowered the security agencies in a bid to get their demands heard. And we've also seen the fact that it is disturbing because peaceful protest was what the organizers said to government. They wrote to the IG of police that we just want a peaceful protest to demonstrate the hardship of the country. But right now, it's also looking at that. A big two events coming up right there, where peaceful nature protest is now becoming violence in nature. And this is just day one. We're worried if this persists for the next 9 days to come, what may likely be the fate of Nigerians. Let's talk about President's responses. Now, he has sent the Minister of Information to address the country in a bid to telling Nigerians to hold on, that I'm on top of the game, understand the situation. I understand that things are hard, livelihood is difficult, but give me some more time so I'm on top of the game to fix the situation. Many Nigerians are saying, the president, come out and talk to us. It's not enough for people to be speaking on your behalf. It's not enough for people to hold in press conferences and briefing. We just want a president to talk. What does talking? I'm bothered about those who are demanding the president to talk. Do you see that the fact that if the president comes out to talk and address Nigerians, this may chef these intended protests?
I think it helps assuage the feelings of Nigerians. It makes the youth know that truly the president is listening and he can hear their cries and he can see their pain. Hitherto before now, we know that there's this seeming Ali Ndume had said the president has been caged, so to say. He's not aware of what is happening in the country because his media aides and those around him are not telling him the truth. They always tell him things he wants to hear. Praise singers, sycophants would not tell him the truth situation of things. And so this seemed to be an opportunity for the Nigerian youth, the Nigerians, to let the president hear them out and let him see what they are truly going through. And if that's the case, and if the president also in response wants Nigerian people, the Nigerian protesters and the Nigerian youths to know that he can hear them and he understands their pain and he truly has the mindset to attend to each of their demands, then I think it's only natural, it's only fair that Mr. President would address the nation, address the youth specifically on the issues raised, and giving them specific timelines to say, this is what I'm going to do as regards this particular demand of yours, this is what I'm going to do as regards this second demand of yours, and puts timelines to each of those demands so that the Nigerian people, the Nigerian youth would know that, okay, the president says he's going to do this, but we're going to give him X amount of time so that it doesn't seem like the president is lying to the people when he doesn't give them a specific amount of time. For the minister, speaking on behalf of the president, you rightly pointed out, this is not the time where ministers or persons should speak on his behalf. Bringing it down to the family unit, when the family is on fire, the husband or the father doesn't send his uncle to speak to his children. He talks to his children at the right time, giving them reasons why they should trust him, why they should believe him. And I think if the Nigerian youth, if the protesters have come out to say, we want Mr. President to know this is what we're going through, this is what we want him to do, it's only natural, it's only respectful for Mr. President to come out and talk to his children or the youth rather than send people to talk to them, because it paints this picture of someone who doesn't feel he's feeling too big to talk to the Nigerian people, or does not see it as a worthy enough exercise for him to partake. So I think it's key for Mr. President to address the nation as soon as possible in order to ensure that this quells that. And because I want to see that the security agencies are beginning to play to the gallery already in the first day of the protest. If you notice their dress code, you could see them tying all red handbands. That's to suggest battle-ready, smelling blood, red connotes danger, and that's not the right signal you want to send to people that are already angry and hungry. It sends more like they're being insensitive to what Nigerians are going through, and rather would want to shut it down their throat and do not allow them express themselves as the Constitution has given them that right. So I think for the protests to probably quell and not continue for the second day, I think it's right for Mr. President to speak to the Nigerian people because there's a danger that if this escalates, goes the second, the third day, it might get more violent, because with the first day's attack of the Nigerian youth by the security agencies, they are going to be coming back more armed, more prepared in response to whatever the security agencies will be throwing at them after the first day of the protest.
All right, we are seeing that a lot of reactions and concern by both the protesters and those who are also calling the protesters not to protest. I mean, it is only Nigeria we're having that played out. But whatever this interest might be, it is on the grounds that the people only want to see the government that works. And the end bad governance protest is coming at a time where the people have been fed up with the issues, the crisis of governance, and the economic hardship generally, and the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, among other issues. But I'm being joined by an expert who understands the challenges this may look like and the concern about what is turning out already to be a violence protest. Joining us is Dr. Wisdom Enang, a public affairs analyst, of course, connecting with us virtually to give us a perspective and understanding about the conditions right there if the federal government seems to be confused at a time like this. Several concern about the government to call on the protesters to shelve this protest has not in any way yielded result. The protesters have started the demonstration right here from the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos, Edo. Many states are already queuing behind the protest. It's now becoming a national issue, just away from things that were just starting from the social media, now becoming a reality in the country, creating tensions everywhere in the country in a bid to persuade other Nigerians. Doctor, good to have you join us on the program. All right, Doctor, if you can
Thank you
hear
very
me,
much.
give me an
I really
understanding
do.
about the attack in Kano, because we understand that the Minister of Communications is worried about the destruction of that technological hub, which, according to him, was constructed to support Nigeria's technical talent to accelerate program. But right now, it has been set ablaze by young people who went out on a protest. This time, we can't really know if it was the peaceful protesters or hoodlums who hijacked the process. Give us an understanding about that issue right there.
I think very sad issue, really, because the intent of the protest, like the protesters aligned, was to lay out certain demands that was, kind of get the federal government to give attention and timelines to those demands. But that has been hijacked, and that's not the intent of the protest. So I would believe that this was hijacked by hoodlums who are not aligned with the entire philosophy of the protest. And now that has come at a cost that is going to take us back economically, at least maybe 10 years in the past, and undo some of the gains that Nigeria has had.
What would you rather suggest? Because all attempts by government to persuade protesters is not in any way bringing result. And we are afraid that if this continues tomorrow and in the next 8-9 days, it probably may lead to the loss of life. Thanks to God, today it has only been loss of properties. We don't know what may play out tomorrow.
Yeah, I think to be honest, there are multiple ways the government should go about to quell this protests, and primarily through dialogue. I think the youths have laid out their first demonstrative move, and that's today. Yes, there was some little bit of violence here and there. There are some unreported indications that people lost their lives, but we haven't validated it. However, I think an emergency meeting needs to be called by the government to say, what can we do? What can we say? What are the timelines, very importantly, that we can do to let people have confidence? This is all about confidence, I'll tell you. Now, if we look at some of the government's plans and the playbook before they came into power, it was said that if they remove fuel subsidy and float the naira, that the naira will be floating around 500 to 550 naira per dollar. That was the face value, all the way maybe max to 600. However, I don't think they were prepared for a scenario where the naira is going above 1,600. I don't think they had a contingency plan for when everything drifts south. And that is why the youths are losing patience to say, look, you have done your policies, they are not working, but we are not seeing mitigations in place. And these are things that the government needs to come out and say, okay, this is our plans to be able to reverse the bad economic trend, and this is how much time that we need. We don't want to be told, give us time. How much time, and what are your stewardship towards the plans and aspirations of your economic playbook? Those are the things that the government needs to quickly come up. The second thing that we need to come out and do is to have an emergency meeting with the governors, because the governors play a very vital role. I'll give you a context. In Akwa Ibom today, there is no protest. And the reason there's no protest is that the governor has done a lot to be able to, meet the yearnings and the pains of the average person. So the people don't see the need to protest. So the thing is, the governors have a critical role, not all about the center. So the governors need to work with the presidency to say, what kind of confidence level do we need to be sending to people right now, just immediately, so that we can quell it on a state-by-state level. If we're able to dialogue, we can arrest this very quickly. I think that's the way. A dialogue involving the protesters, the governors, and the presidency is the way forward.
All right, Wisdom, let's look at on the part of the security agencies and civil society organizations. Do you think somewhere along the line the civil society organization shied away from their responsibility by backing out after the closed-door meeting with the federal government? All they did was call out to say they were not part of the protest anymore and try to dissuade people. And also for security agencies, do you think they've done well enough on the first day of the protest?
The thing is, right, where I am, I was able to go about my business and buy, for example, fuel today, and the securities were not having, they were not out there to, sort of victimize anyone. They were actually making sure that everybody's okay. From where I stand in Lagos here, so I mean, from where I stand, yes, they did their job, and for the most part of Lagos, I think they sent out that signal that okay, we're here to protect you. But I think when the violence was about to ensue, I saw some clips where the security agencies were trying to disperse those kind of crowds from creating violence. But of course, that the same cannot be said all over the country. There are areas where the security agencies were inciting the potential for violence in their actions. Of course, these are things that hovers around the training and ethics of these security agencies. I don't think it is homogeneous enough. Some areas were doing well. Some areas definitely need improvement when it comes to crowd management, when it comes to protest management. Now, when you see you talk about some of those groups that were supposed to support the protesters, and my question is, what made them back out? Is it that the federal government has laid out plans, or what are the plans? Because that would tell me whether or not they failed the protesters or not, or were they concerned, were they intelligent information? Because again, there's a problem. I saw some notes that said they have postponed the protest, and another note saying no, this is fake news. So we're not sure what it is. And I don't think it doesn't help those that are really willing to protest, not having clarity on whether the protest was actually being called off by those groups and they were not backing them anymore, or whether or not they were the sort of indication from the federal government to meet certain demands, which means it was the right judgment to postpone that protest, or was there any dialogue, or some people will say, was there any exchange of money that meant that those guys were quiet, were kind of meant to be quiet through being indulged by money. So again, there are different theories, but it's really confusing and difficult to pass a judgment on which of it applies, and then to tell whether they failed the protesters or not.
We are more concerned about how we can go out of this situation, because it is now a reality that the people are protesting. And when you ask them, some of them are saying that the removal of subsidy has brought untold hardship on them. You are in the oil sector, doctor. I understand that you have a knowledge about why government, had to remove subsidy. All the presidential aspirants and the candidates in the country have subscribed to removal of subsidy. But it looks as if after a year, people have been reduced from the level they were a year ago to a condition and a situation where some of them can't even afford livelihood. Some families are bitter about the situation. I had to talk to when we were on the street, out there for the protest, covering the protest. Some of them also, I saw a father who demonstrated the fact that when he was leaving the house, he had told the wife that I may not come back alive, that I have to do this because I don't even know where the next meal may come out to feed my family and all of that. There's an outcry about the subsidy removal. Doctor, what can you advise at a time like this, understanding the implications about why government removed subsidy and now the implications on the lives of the people?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think removing of subsidy was very sacrosanct across all candidates of the presidential election. However, what was not sacrosanct was the removal of fuel subsidy and the flotation of the naira simultaneously. That was the one that cracked the camel's back. Now, when you even look at the whole thing, it is further amplified with the fact that you remove your subsidy, you also float the naira without a proper consequence analysis, because the consequence analysis will tell you what are you gonna do when things go wrong, how are you gonna fix certain things as they go south, what are your mitigations in place, and then that would tell us exactly that you have covered the worst case scenario, and at worst that your risk is either eliminated or the consequences of the risk has been reduced to as low as reasonably probable. Now, when you talk about the government, as I said, when I looked at their economic policies, they actually estimated that when they put those economic policies, within a 6 months to 1 year period that the dollar would be between, as I said, 500 to 600 max. But that hasn't been the case. And the case is, how do you respond to this? They didn't budget for the inflation that has gone off the roof, including, a food inflation that is almost, that's above 35% at the moment. So the truth of the matter is, at this point in time, what does the government needs to do? The government needs to relook at some of its policies and ask itself, what are the things that we need? Fine, we have done this policy, we've done it, the damage is there. What can we do immediately? And also, as I said, this whole thing needs to work with the state governors. No matter what you do in the FCT, if your state governors are not responsible and they're not, putting out measures to cushion the effect at the state level, there's nothing the federal government can do. So this is going to be a joint effort. But we need to look at our austerity measures again and ask ourselves, are we going to be able to survive these austerity measures? And at the end of the day, when the better Nigeria comes, is it going to be at the cost of human lives and I know that has been caused by bad economics? These are the questions that the economic managers need to answer very quickly before we get ourselves into anarchy.
All right, still on the sector where you hold sway, the recent move by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu giving directives for the NNPCL to sell crude oil to the Dangote refinery in Naira. Do you think that was long overdue? And why do you think there was this deliberate attempt to technically sabotage the effort of the Dangote refinery, production process?
Right. I think first question. Thank you very much. The idea of selling in Naira has been long overdue. I think it's one of those things that is really going to help the Naira. I think just in terms of timing, just as you say, the timing is very important. But I think the timing was done deliberately. And I tell you what, the government tried a number of things, floating the currency to make sure that it's a little bit more competitive than what it used to be, and people can come in and trade in a free market system. Then to remove the volatility, they had to reduce the variance between the official market and the parallel market. That was the second move. And then, of course, the third move that the federal government did was to say, okay, we would periodically inject money into the economy, to make sure that we don't have that forex deficits, and that if the exchange rate is going haywire, then we can curb the those sort of undulations on the forex market. Now, the next thing to do is to see how we can promote the sales of certain sectors or certain products in using our local currency. That's really important. Russia has done it and they're successful at it. To a large extent, India has done it and they're successful. So I think it's a step-by-step playbook. So yes, it is long overdue, but as I said, from where I said, it's a very tactical plan that the federal government had put in place to make sure that they're doing one plan after the order to be able to stabilize the local currency. Now, the question that I ask is, do we have enough supply to sustain the momentum? And that's very important because we have a lot of forward sales. We have also on the contract side, the JV partners and the PSC partner, the production sharing contracts, they all take their own share of the crude as well. And then we have our own, side of the crude. We need to still sell to make, forex, dollars. We also need to be able to pay back our forward, forward loans that are reserved back. We equally need to give the Dangote refinery in Naira. So I think there's a number of things that is going to go good because it's going to improve the Naira exchange rate, and it's going to help domestic refining. It's also going to stabilize the price if you are dealing in Naira predominantly. It will stabilize the price. The big question, though, is can we have enough quantity to sustain the momentum to make a difference to the Dangote refinery? Speaking of the wrangle between the NMDPRA and the Dangote refinery, I think it's just a very bad mix of lack of an alignment of the vision when it comes to prioritizing domestic refining, and also lack of communication. Because in March 2024, the ppm allowable limit for sulfur content was 1,000 for PMS, petroleum premium motor spirit, and 3,000 for AGO, which is diesel. Now, before that was before March 2024. After March 2024, March the 1st, the government reviewed it and said all products should come in with 200 ppm. What does that mean? Even if the Dangote refinery at the first instant was producing between 600 to 1,000 ppm of sulfur content, that means it was still valid in any scale before March 2024. But the truth is, after March 2024, I think the regulator had not caught up with the Dangote refinery to see how well they were doing on stewarding their reduction of the sulfur target. So even when Dangote had gone to doing less below 70 ppm and planning to do below 10 about 10 ppm, the regulator was still thinking of the was still quoting the emissions targets at the time that Dangote started, which was actually valid at the time. So I think it was just the regulator not doing their job, and that is also shown when the regulator doesn't even have a laboratory, and the regulator is depending on third-party tests, and the regulator itself is not overseeing and ensuring the comprehensiveness of his tests. I'll give you a little bit of context. In January 2022 and February 2022, there was a lot of inventory of petrol that was imported with high levels of methanol. And what that meant is a lot of our cars were bad. But what does that mean? It means that the test was not comprehensive, because the NNPC did tell us that the Nigerian test for the petroleum product does not include methanol. So some people were able to blend high levels of methanol in our fuel and cause us to get that sort of bad fuel that almost knocks a lot of people's engines. At the end of the day, it's about how well are our regulators owning their jobs, how well are they taking ownership, and how well are they keeping in touch or protecting the industry that they are supposed to protect.
All right, Dr. Wisdom, my question to you would be, what would you see as the international implication of this protest in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. Recently, if you have been observing the foreign exchange market, you're going to see that the inflow or the influx of money exchange in that market is not as high as before. And that is why the Naira is slipping. So we're having very less people willing to come into the market at the moment. And the reason is this: a number of things. We have reached I think the limits that are raising our interest rates can help us put in a lot of money. So we need a lot of more ingenious ideas. But again, when you come and look at why investors behave that way, even in the stock market, the wait and see approach is always deployed by investors when they have uncertainty. That's it. When they're looking at, okay, there's a lot of complaints, there's a lot of hunger, things may happen, protests may erupt, war may erupt, things may degenerate into war. That is when they deploy the wait and see. So what is going to happen is a lot of investors are going to extend their wait and see period to say, okay, if we were going to wait for 6 months and see before we invest, we're going to extend it for about a year, because the uncertainty is getting even further. This increases, the whole process increases the rating of Nigeria's uncertainty when it comes to the potential for violence and war to break out. And all investors are going to say, I tell you what, all plans or portfolios that we plan for Nigeria has been, extended for the next 1 year, and that's what is going to happen. We're going to lose a lot of potential investments, and even if they are, still there, a lot of those investors would shift their outlook for at least 1 year.
All right, Doctor, just before I let you go, yesterday the Ministry of Information had to hold the World Press Conference, and they invited some of the ministers to again re-echo what government are doing. But it seems the people are not still listening. Do you feel that there is a trust issue between the people and what the government are doing? Or is it the fact that some of the policies of government are meeting to the reality on the ground, where when you go to the market, you understand how much a family have to buy things at the market, the livelihood, accommodation, transportation, and all these issues. And so some of the grammars generally is not making sense to the people. But government are saying we are doing enough, we are on track. Tinubu's administration is addressing the many issues we've had in this country. What is assessment of these commitment by both the government and the people?
All right, thank you very much. As I said, the only sensible way for the people to relate to the government is one, the results that they see, not the potential result that the government is kind of showing out and telling people that would come, the results that they see, and how well people feel that the government is achieving the goals of its kind of administrative playbook, and that comes with how well at the time you said you were going to achieve certain targets in your administrative playbook. How well are you achieving it? As I said to you, I've actually looked at the renewed, hope agenda that of the president, and what I saw in there that was that if we're able to float naira, remove fuel subsidy, we are going to be able within a year to achieve between 500 and 600 of exchange rate. Why is that important? Nigeria is all about importation for at least the greater part of 80% of our consumption. So that is important. And by the time you have people looking at the fact that you haven't achieved as much so your intents are very fantastic. Your efforts are good, but I will tell you what, nobody pays for efforts. Nobody pays for intent. This is the same reason that Nokia failed. Nokia put in a lot of work, but the results were not at parity with the effort and the intent. And so you have to understand that the people are not just impatient because that they are, wanting to be impatient. They are impatient because they lack clarity and direction of where we're going in terms of, okay, this is what the sacrifices we have to make. This is what the government is doing, and this is how long it's going to take for things to be better. And then when things get better, this is what getting better would look like. Those are the answers that the average person wants. And this is why I say we need clarity. I thought that clarity should have been in the government's playbook. But when I open it and I superimpose the reality on ground with what the playbook had said we will be able to achieve as of today, I worry because it's quite a variance between the playbook and what the governments are doing at the moment. So those are the four critical questions that the government must answer to rekindle the hope of Nigeria. Remember, I'll tell you what, Nigerians, there are two types of Nigerians out there. The ones that are protesting physically and the ones that are protesting mentally. And when you talk about mental protests, there are some that have lost the Nigerian factor in them. Nigerian factor means you're beginning to think about Japa, everything but Nigeria, including Japa to Ghana or anywhere else. And I think rekindling this hope is not just quelling the protest that is being physically driven on the street. It's also about quelling the mental protest and rekindling the hope of the Nigerianness in the average Nigerian.
Thanks so much. Dr. Winsor Menang is a senior energy analyst and a consultant, also a public affairs analyst. Thanks so much, Doctor, for joining with us. Give us a perspective on the state of the nation. However, we're looking forward to seeing government implementing some of these policies to address the challenges on ground. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. We'll have to go on a break right now, and once we return from the break, we'll get the conversation still started before we round up the program. Do stay with us.
For an insightful idea that takes the center stage and the conversation that gets beyond the headlines, to explore the lasting impact of political decisions, Big Talk got you covered. From policy debates to geopolitical insights, from thought-provoking discussions to actionable insight.
What is the real responsibility of government?
Big Talk delves deep into the heart of the matter. Join us weekdays on global televisions from 6:30 p.m. for a reverting journey into the heart of politics, where we dissect issues shaping our society.
Well, that's the convention we'll be having right here. It is the day one of the demonstration, the protest against hunger, against bad governance, against hardship, and all of those things. You can talk it as it may be about governments showing that they're on top of the game in addressing the many challenges. And of course, we do hope that the president who has set up so many policies that will strengthen the situations of the country regarding the economy. The economy right now is really hitting hard, and despite the pleas from the state government to cancel the protest, the protesters have hit the streets on a day one. And of course, it looks like it's something that may actually have to repeat itself again tomorrow and in the next days to come. But we do hope the government will loosen up some of the policies and the processes in addressing the challenges we are having and putting the nation back. Nigeria is our only country, and we can all collectively grow to make Nigeria work for all of us. That's the size of, of course, our conversations tonight on Big Talk. Tomorrow we'll be coming out, of course, with another perspective of discussions and, of course, are building to what may be playing out tomorrow on the scene. So you just have to get us feedback. If you have a comment, drop it in the comment section, and the phone line will be displayed subsequently tomorrow so that you can send us a report of what's happening from your state or your area so that we can get all of these packaged on the program and make a robust discussion. Thanks so much for staying with us on the program Big Talk. I'm Medica Michael, your host. See you again tomorrow.